Good morning. Our lesson for today is about entrepreneur. For the learning objectives of the topic, after the discussion, you will learn how to discuss the personal entrepreneurial characteristic under the following clusters: achievement, planning, and power. You can differentiate also the following clusters, whether it is achievement, planning, and power. Explain the creative process of generating ideas, differentiate between backward and forward linkages, and draw out ideas as examples of backward and forward linkages. To start with, let's talk about characteristic of an entrepreneur. The ordinary people choose to be employed in private or government offices. Entrepreneurs are a different breed of working people. They are not ordinary people by virtue of the nature of their chosen career. They possess qualities that distinguish them from the ordinary businessman. These are the characteristic that will help them survive while doing business. The characteristics of an entrepreneurs can be developed and increased. Without being aware of them, some people already have these entrepreneurial characteristics. Some utilize these characteristics in business, but some people are scared to do so. Thus, instead of engaging in the business, they prefer to work with someone else. It is called white collar jobs are preferred because they provide less headaches compared to an entrepreneur's work, which requires him to crack his brains to make a good decisions. The first characteristic of an entrepreneur is take risk, or an entrepreneur should be a risk taker. So unlike ordinary people, entrepreneurs take risk with caution. Whenever they feel that a business endeavor will end up profitable, if an ordinary people fear of what will happen to their investments if they start a business, entrepreneurs don't. Be- because of their confidence, they will most likely take calculated risk. For example, if money is deposited in the bank, it is considered safer than anything else. However, a risk taker would not place his money there, but put it in a business, hoping that it would earn a higher amount. Next is an entrepreneur take leadership roles. So it means that entrepreneurs possess leadership skills and qualities. They are natural leaders and it shows. They have a certain aura that commands respect, which is very important in managing people. Next characteristic is be just and objective. So what does it mean? So an entrepreneurs are morally ethical. They know what is right and what is wrong. In dealing with problems, these people act for the common good. With an objective boss, the employees will know that he means business. They reward good employees and punish the erring ones. Next is entrepreneur see opportunities from obstacles. Entrepreneurs have a keen sight for opportunities that ordinary people would not see. So an ordinary person will look at a piece of wood only as such, but an entrepreneur will look at it differently, maybe as a piece of furniture or something more valuable and useful. An entrepreneur is or can also make good decision. Entrepreneurs end up as successful men and women because they make good and sound decisions. Entrepreneurs have to make decisions with either immediate or long-term effects every day. Failure to make sound decision will lead to more losses to the firm. And last, entrepreneur must be hard workers. So these entrepreneurs do not count the hours or hours until they are able to finish their job. Their drive to achieve their goals serve as their power to work. They are not usually confined to the 8 to 5 office hours. They don't follow office schedule. So now let's talk about what is the meaning of PECs, or what we call personal entrepreneurial characteristic. So in the Philippines, the Department of Trade and Industry undertook a worldwide extensive research on entrepreneurship. So the research identified the 10 personal entrepreneurial characteristics. So these characteristics are grouped into three main clusters, which is namely, the first one is what we call the achievement clusters, which includes the five basic characteristics of an individual who wants to succeed. So the other characteristic become useless without these five, or what we call first five characteristics. So the five characteristics under the achievement clusters are opportunity seeking, persistence, commitment to work, risk taking, and demand for efficiency and quality. The next cluster, or the second cluster, is what we call the planning cluster, which includes characteristics that enable one to prepare for the future. So the characteristic under the planning cluster are goal setting, information seeking, and systematic planning and monitoring. And the last cluster is what we call the power cluster, which includes characteristic that determines eventual success or failure. So the characteristic under the power cluster are persuasion and networking and self-confidence. So now we will discuss the three clusters. So first, let's focus on the first one, which is the achievement cluster. So under this cluster, the entrepreneurs are considered achievers. They want to get things done. They do not stop unless they get what they want to attain. This is contrary to the Filipino attitude of Ningas Kugon, where nothing gets finished. So the achievement cluster is composed of the five most important personal entrepreneurial characteristics. So the first one is what we call opportunity seeking. So, an opportunity seeking person sees occasion in the following areas. The first one is new business opportunities. So, when you say that, for instance, business opportunities often spring from unmet needs or needs that are insufficiently satisfied. Opportunities come fast. When they do come, one should grab them immediately. Otherwise, someone else will. To identify new opportunities, one would just have to look around his community and identify what the people need and for which they have a difficulty looking for supply. Next is identify cheap source of funds. So a cheap source of funds is important, especially for a small business entrepreneurs who do not have enough capital. Since they are easier to pay back, profit returns can immediately be gained. For example, an opportunity is taken when an investor offers money, the interest of which is less than what the bank is offering as a loan. The last one is identifies areas for the placement of excess assets. So it means that an entrepreneur does not want to tie his money to unproductive activities. He wants to maximize his money's worth. He can spot endeavors where he can invest his money and earn more than what bank can offer. For example, he learns to invest in dollars or buy shares of stocks instead of placing his money in the bank. So let's talk about the next achievement cluster, which is what we called persistence. So this characteristic is manifested by the following. So does not believe in failures. So if you are persistent, you do not believe in failure. So the entrepreneur is a positive thinker. So he believes that he will succeed in whatever endeavor he will engage in. He believes that failures are just part of the process and success is sure to follow. So let's take, for example, the Honorable Manuel Villar. Mr. Villar is a successful person in business. So, however, has he achieved that position without experiencing problem and risk? What is great for Mr. Villar is his positive outlook that he would succeed. Next is does not tire to repeat again and again. So because of the need to succeed and withstand failures, an entrepreneur repeats the whole process with enthusiasm. For example, if the loan application with the bank is denied, an entrepreneur must not feel discouraged. He should look for other banks or sources that can lend him the funds needed, or an inquiry with the first bank must be made on how to comply with these requirements. Failure should never stop an entrepreneur from trying again. So, try until you succeed. Yun nga yung ibig sabihin nun. So, next is um, sticks to what he believes in. So, a very persistent person also stands for what he strongly believes in. For example, if an entrepreneur knows that one of his managers is wrong in understanding a policy, so the entrepreneur considers all related concerns but would still believe in himself if he thinks he is right. So the entrepreneur instead would convince others to see his viewpoint. Okay, next under achievement cluster is what we called commitment to work. So when you say commitment to work, a person who is committed to his work shows the following traits. So what are these? Number one, views work as play. So an entrepreneur enjoys what he does. He treats work as a means of a leisure and produces quality work, which is a commitment to work should also be a commitment to equality or to quality. A committed person sees to it that he produces quality products and services. So an entrepreneur does not believe in the saying na pwede na. Okay, next is believes in continuous improvement. So an entrepreneur continues to improve himself and his products. What if the product is already number one in the market? For the entrepreneur, this is not an obstacle. No matter how superior he thinks he is or his products are, his commitment to provide the best is unending. Next is willing to do long hours of work. So a committed person does not count the hours of work he renders. He does this because of his commitment to work and to the people he serves. If there is still work that has to be finished within the day, he must finish it whatever it takes. The last one is willing to accept additional responsibility when necessary. So, a commitment to work entails the acceptance of more responsibilities. Entrepreneurs should be willing to do more than what is expected of them. They will also not hesitate to do menial chores, especially if it concerns the good of the business and its customers. So, next is under this cluster is risk taking. So when you say risk taking, the entrepreneur takes risk in the following occasions, such as the starting business. So starting a business is already a taking risk. So it takes a lot of guts to be an entrepreneur. Only few people would have the courage to leave their stable jobs and start their own business. Then in making business decision, once an entrepreneur start his own business, he will be confronted with a lot of problems. These problems could be related to recruiting or firing employees, obtaining loans, or buying machinery and equipment. An entrepreneur has to make these decisions which may or may not please the people he is connected with. In this case, he is taking the risk of losing the loyalty of some people because of his decision. So before taking risk, an entrepreneur assesses the situation first using the following strategies. So the first one is takes moderate and calculated risk. So what does it mean? So he pursued risk-taking endeavors only when he thinks the outcome would be profitable. At the same time, he makes sure that the risk he takes will bring him to zero in case of failure. Next, does not take risk when he has doubts. So it means that if the situation seems to be unfavorable, a wise entrepreneur forgoes taking the risk until certainty of success is seen. And last, the achievement under the achievement cluster is what we call demand for efficiency and quality. So when you say this, uh, entrepreneur aims to maximize profits and minimize cost. He is frugal but does not compromise the quality of his product. So he implement cost effectiveness rather than cost cutting. So an efficient and quality conscious entrepreneur um, acts on things that meets or exceeds existing standards, excellence, or improving on past performance. So, like for example, schools or different schools subject themselves to accreditation standard like PASCO, which is Philippine Association of School, College, and Universities, while industries are into ISO or International Standard Office accreditation. Next, it strives to do things better, faster, and cheaper. So it means that, for example, if production of a dress takes about 2 hours, the entrepreneur must look for ways to be able to produce a dress in less than 2 hours, not the very least cost. Okay, so that is under the achievement cluster. So let's talk about now the planning cluster. So when you say planning cluster, um, by the way, first and foremost, when you say planning, planning refers to the setting of objectives, policies, and standards geared toward the realization of set goals. So it serves to give direction to the business, just like how a map guides a traveler on his way to his destination. Having a concrete plan minimizes the chance of failure and makes the business less costly to operate due to trial and error scheme or schemes. So the characteristic under the planning clusters are the first one is goal setting. So when you say goal setting, it means that the entrepreneur must know how to plan for the future. So these plans could be long term, which is strategic, or short term, which is operational. So these plans set directions for the employees to follow. So goals must be specific, attainable, intelligible, and limited, or what we call SAIL, SAIL. So this will be discussed further in the next topic or next unit. Next is information seeking. So an entrepreneur must know how to seek information needed by the business. For example, to expand his business, he would need to look into different information sources like internet, books, journals, and magazines to be able to come up with a good expansion plan. So he must also seek membership with organizations related to the industry where his business belongs. So an important quality of the information seeker is his ability to establish interpersonal relationship with other people. So these relationships will serve as conduits for the gathering of information. So next and last characteristic under planning cluster is systematic planning and monitoring. So it means that a good plan should always be followed by an effective monitoring system. So monitoring is a comparison of the objectives that has been set and actual accomplishments done. So it is measure of a plan's effectivity and a means of determining points for improvement. For example, if the plan is for all the employees to be excellent service providers, then there should be an evaluation scheme to identify the quality of their actual services. The last cluster is what we call the power cluster. So when you say power cluster, the characteristic of an entrepreneur under this cluster includes persuasion and networking and self-confidence. So entrepreneur who possess such characteristics has an advantage over his competitors. So let's talk about persuasion and networking. So what does it mean? So this is the ability of the entrepreneur to convince the customers to buy his product and services. So encourage investors to put their money in the business and convince the banks and suppliers to grant credit to the firm. And last is um, self-confidence. So this is the ability of the entrepreneur to be secure of himself, of what he's doing, and of the thought that he will achieve his goals. A person who is confident gains the respect of others. The confidence he exudes gives him the aura of authority and superiority. Okay, so to summarize or our discussion for today, so an entrepreneur possesses the characteristic that can make a business succeed. So he has a need for achievement, willingness to take risks, has self-confidence, is hardworking, innovative, has leadership skills, a positive thinker, and a good decision maker. So the Department of Trade and Industry has categorized this characteristic under three clusters. So what are these three clusters? So namely, we have the achievement cluster, the planning cluster, and of course, the last one is the power cluster. So under the achievement clusters are the following, which is seeks opportunity, seeks and acts on new business opportunities, seizes unusual opportunities to obtain financial assistance, equipment, land, and work. And under the planning cluster, it includes goal setting, information seeking, and systematic planning and monitoring. So the last cluster, which is the power cluster, involves traits such as persuasion and networking and self-confidence. So to know if you have the personal entrepreneurial characteristic, you can try testing yourself using the instrument adapted from Kuratko and Hadgets, um, which will be discussed or given to you on our next session or next topic or next class. So again, thank you and have a good day.